Hello, hello, everyone. We are finally live, guys. I'm sorry. I spent the last 3 hours trying to diagnose some internet problems, and, it's back up now. I haven't solved the problem, but turning everything off and turning it back on has solved the problem. So we're playing some Path of Exile today, so I'm really excited for this, and we're gonna try Monk, I think. So I expect to get disconnected some. I expect to potentially have, some long wait times and what have you. There's a million people that are signed up for this right now. So definitely going to be, I imagine there could be some serious network problems and network issues and everything here. Hey, Nani, how's it going? Awesome. Thanks for saying hi. Hey, Himura. Been playing for 30 minutes. It's so good. So good, man. Just crash it. Just crashed though. Ah, bummer. Okay. Well, I just hit the login. I don't know if it's... I think Texas is the closest place to me, so I guess that's where we're going. Is that game volume a little high? I feel like it might be. It's a little high for me. Merc feels so fun. Yeah, that's cool. That's cool. Merc, I got to play at PAX West, I think. And it was a good time. They had you're throwing out 3 potions at a time, and then they blow up and what have you. So that's cool. I played the Merc, played the Sword and Board guy. I think I played the Ranger, maybe. Yeah, I'm not sure what all I've played, but yeah, excited. You order food so you can sit and watch? That's awesome. I got myself all set up 3 hours ago, and I was ready for the long haul. Is it just not logging in? And yeah, then I went to stream, and I was dropping signal for the stream, and so it's oh no. But I feel you. I was set up for a 6-hour stream. I was ready to go, but hopefully this'll get going here. If not, we'll just keep clicking. It just keeps timing out. Is this Hamura, is this what you've been having too? The Dev even made a vid last night saying launch would be rough due to how many pre-orders they had. Yeah, exactly. I saw that. I saw that as well, Jonathan. Yeah. I know. Still battling internet there. It sucks, Nani, that you're having that issue. I hate it for you because I know streaming. I mean, streaming became part of your life. It became part of get to have fun and connect with people, and then all of a sudden you can't do it. It sucks. Is it just kicking back? Okay, you're in a queue right now. I might, I've disconnected and reconnected my internet, so this keeps failing to contact server. I'm gonna quit and just try to do this again. Probably move that to a different screen. Yeah, exactly. I know you can't stream. I know that sucks. Yeah, and it seems like it's going to be a while, or I don't know, indefinite, trying to figure out the problems with that. It's so frustrating. Internet should be a public utility, but in the US it's not for whatever reason. Oh, you can't even get satellite out there now. Okay, I don't think I had caught up on the latest part of the saga. You can't even get satellite. Yeah, I mean, that seems like the right way to go. Yeah, that'll be nice. Let's see. Well, it's not putting me in a queue, and it's just kicking me out. So I don't know what to make of that. If I feel like I just need to keep trying to log in. What am I doing here? Sound. There we go. Let's turn down this a bit. And I guess we'll just keep clicking log in. What can't you sub? Is sub a, so I'm not monetized if that's a thing. But if you mean just like sub to Twitch, like I don't really know how Twitch works, Nani. I think you know that. But I think I mean I have like, I don't know, I've got followers, so you should be able to follow. Is that different? Is sub like the paid thing? Nani, you don't need to. Nani, you're very nice. Too kind. Too kind. Well, we'll be watching a queue for a little bit, it would seem. Yeah, Nani, I'm almost there on Twitch. I just need... Oh, you can pay to get rid of ads. Oh, okay. I'm sorry. Ads are... Okay. Yeah. I need, like... What do I need on Twitch? I can actually look at it real quick. I'm curious. I need, like, a few people to be talking at the same time in Twitch. And I think, like, 3 average concurrent streamers. And I'm at, like, 2 point something. So I just need to get a handful of concurrent streamers to bring the average up, I think. Yeah. I think it works similar to the way YouTube works. I think where you can kind of watch over there. Oh, I appreciate it. Oh, Hamura, I'm sorry I missed that. Did I serve in the military? I give off vet vibes. Yeah, I did. Yeah. Usually we can tell. You know, you can smell your own, right? You can kind of tell. Yeah, I was in the Army. Okay, cool. Yeah. It's funny. When I went to school, I went to college afterwards, and it's like you walk into a class, and even when people are like different ages, you just know. You just like look, and you're like, yeah, that dude was in the military. It's kind of funny. I did a video on my other on the tabletop channel talking about like strength and TTRPGs, and like some of it's like I was talking about like being able to carry and being encumbered and stuff like that, and wanting it to be kind of realistic. And I messaged one of my friends, and I was like, hey man, that I'd met in college, and I was like, hey man, how much were our rucksacks? Like, do you remember what that was? And he just laughed at me and was like, dude, I was in the Navy. like I don't know, man. I don't know. I was in the Navy. I thought that was pretty funny. Well, thank you. Yeah, I think, civil service of some kind is, I think, a great thing for most people. And I kind of wish, in other places you don't have to join the military. You can do all kinds of other stuff. Okay, you're living Bravo? Yeah, I was in 91 Whiskey, so I was a medic. Yeah. I couldn't join the infantry because I'm too colorblind, which I thought was funny. Too colorblind to be in the infantry. It actually like restricted my options to like a handful of things, and apparently medic was one of them. So. Well, I wish you would put us in queue instead of just popping us out. Hey, Robert, what's going on? 74 Charlie, okay. I don't know what a 74 Charlie is, man. I don't remember anything. It's been so long. I could guess, but I'd probably be way off. What's a 71 Charlie? That's awesome. You know what? I get uncomfortable when people are like, thank you for your service or whatever. So my defense mechanism is like, satellite telecom. Okay, cool. All right. So my defense mechanism would be like, I try not to do this, right? I try not to be like an edgelord, but not everybody knows you kill someone for him. So, Nani, you were Navy, right? So just all of us here. Or no, Air Force, Cheer Force, wasn't it? I feel like Nani's smarter than me, so I feel like she did something better. Dropped you in to set up comms for missions. Okay, that's cool. Yeah, Air Force. Okay, yeah. Go to your responses. Thanks for your support. Yeah, that's much better. That's much better. I guess I need to keep clicking this button. I'm a little bit worried it's not doing anything. The servers are like so overloaded. It's like you haven't even got in yet. You couldn't be that hardcore. But I guess the only thing to do is to keep trying. Hamura, is this the situation you were in too? Does it seem like I'm doing the right thing here? Yeah, I totally expected, that we'd be sitting in queue today. I just thought we'd be doing this 3 hours ago, If I could just sit in queue, then we could like pull up a video and everything and maybe kind of watch what the creative director, Jonathan, I pulled up a couple of videos of his where he's kind of talking to the community, and I thought that would be good. But I don't want to do it if we got to keep clicking log in here. I don't want to like miss the opportunity. You're fighting the first boss when you crashed? No! No! I wonder if it is the boss that I... was it kind of like a melee boss? It had like some kind of like big... I want to say like a log maybe? I could be convoluting this. Day 1 vibes? Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it was. Okay, cool. I think I got to play that guy at PAX East. And I was playing a warrior, I think, at the time. That's what I tried. Yeah, on the beach. Yeah, that sounds right. It was water. I couldn't remember if it was swamp or beach or what it was. Yeah. Well, I'm pretty excited. It's really interesting seeing Path of Exile and some of these other companies just kind of show kind of a little bit exposing the AAA game market. It's really pretty interesting, and showing that like, hey, if you're transparent and you're just like real with people, like you get a lot of goodwill. You gain and spend goodwill on anything, and especially when you're like a public figure, a public company, or what have you, and just showing that like, hey, we're honest to our players, we fulfill on our promises, and if we don't, we come clean and we say, hey, sorry, this is why we weren't able to do that. Jonathan, when they had to delay, which was totally fine with me, and I think with really everybody, we've been waiting for this, but they're like, hey, we just have to delay this, and it's going to cost them money, it's going to cost them time, which also equals money. They had certain things that, they had planned for this, servers and what have you, and they had deposits down. It was like, yeah, he mentioned the other day, he was like, yeah, the hardest part is that you're going to have a bunch of people telling you that you can't delay. And it's like, it was the only right thing to do. And the reason they did that is to make sure that people who, had access to PoE 1 and had purchased things, that it would make sure that they would show up in PoE 2. And that's awesome. And, you're always going to have people, I had it happen the other day, where someone dropped into chat and they were like hating on the game, and I've had this with several games. It's funny, it only happens on Twitch because I guess, I don't know, there's a lot more people kind of looking for streamers on Twitch, I guess. But so you get a bigger sample size of the population of people that are interested in watching game streams, and people will like drop in and be like, hate on whatever game it is, and there's some wild takes sometimes. And you're like, well, this, really don't like this company. I've also seen a couple of YouTubers recently also do, some videos saying that games, one of them was Helldivers. I've seen some stuff with Path of Exile, and they're just like, they're really mad about certain things. You're always going to have people that don't understand the process and kind of misunderstand and what have you, but just being open and honest with people will still win you. You can't win over everybody, and I think most people know that, but you can win over a lot of people. And if you're just open, you're just honest, you don't, when Diablo had some issues and their developers went on, and I almost kind of critiqued it, but I try not to. I've kind of stepped away from doing anything like that because I think people misunderstand. I think for me, and this actually might be part of the military background, right? Like people are like, you have a friend and they're like, hey, this dude's or maybe I act like a jerk, right? I would use a stronger phrase than that. And I've had friends, and being in the military, like, and again, maybe it's just a certain subculture. Hey, chicken, you know, you're like, hey, dude, you're acting like a jerk, and you know, again, using much stronger language than this, and be like, you know, stop acting like a jerk, or you're like, oh, I have a friend, he's a jerk, you know, and you know, you're all in the same unit, so you got to work together, you got to be in the same area together, and you're just like, yeah, and you just kind of call each other out for it. So I feel like for me, you know, when someone's really bad at their job, like, I don't think they should keep that job. But I think when I've said stuff like that, people feel like it's hateful or whatever, and I don't want anybody to feel like that. So I just kind of don't talk about that stuff anymore because people don't understand, I guess, you know, and it's the internet. It's hard to have a nuanced conversation, you know, but people just kind of overreact or whatever. So I kind of steer away from it. But you got to be willing to accept that kind of feedback if you're going to be a developer, if you're going to, you know, be in a public role. Hey, there we go. Whatever it is, I agree. I think I have a count. Yes, I do. Link account. Oh, do I need to go? Have I not? Oh, I guess I need to link this account. Let's... So I guess I'm just pulling over to this other screen here and see if I can't log in here. Maybe. Man, it's thinking. It's really thinking. It's thinking so much I don't think it's gonna work. Did I already link this? Did I already do this? That's a great question. God, if I just got all the way to this point, I should have like hit the yes, I've already linked this. I did do this in, I think I did this. Let's, oh God, is it gonna, okay, agree, let's see if it's linked. Account name, here we go. I don't remember what my account name is. I'm pretty sure it's Night Haro, but I should just double check in case. Sorry guys, hope you'll forgive me. To figure this out. Hate streaming, hate watching has become a thing, in my opinion. Not my kind of trend, but yeah, agree. Agree to mail your pinky toe. Yeah, 100% chicken. Whatever it is, just let me play the game. Yeah, you know, like hate watching is a thing. I also think that. From my experience, a lot of people will say that streamers or YouTubers or whatever are doing things for clicks. And in my experience, it's almost never that. There are those people, right? And some of them have big channels and stuff like that. I also haven't found that, you know, whenever I cover anything negative, I tend to lose viewers. And people just don't like it in my experience. And when I saw like someone who had covering Helldivers and they were just talking about all their problems with the game and the issues with the game and everything else, I think all of their complaints were honestly genuine. I just don't think they were right. And so, you know, a lot of people would say that, and not you, but like a lot of people just generally on the internet would like, oh, this person is just doing this for clicks. They're just doing this to get attention, you know, trying to be negative for no reason. When in reality, that's probably not the situation. I don't know if their website is also crashing right now because there's so many people, but I can't seem to... in order to log in with Steam, you must first create a Steam Path of Exile account. Yeah, I have that, and I just need this page isn't loading, so maybe that's the issue. It might just be that their website's down, guys. That might be the issue, that there's a bunch of people. I think that might be what's going on. Yeah, because it's just timing out on me here. Come on, work. Yeah, I think that's what's going on. I think it's just struggle bus in here. That's all right. Is what it is. Can't talk in game. Oh, that's fair. Yeah, but what I was saying earlier is that, there's a lot of, game companies that say, like when Diablo came out and they had a bunch of problems, and they came on and they're like, okay, we'll do this live stream where we'll kind of go over stuff and explain to people. People were mad and people were upset. And their take on it was, let us tell you why you shouldn't be upset and why what we did is good and makes sense. And whenever someone tells you that they don't like your product, trying to tell them that, no, you're wrong. Let me tell you why. And they were very defensive. And that was never going to work out well. And it also kind of speaks to a larger problem with clearly they don't accept, feedback from players. And it's a huge deal. And it's really weird because when you have bad companies, right? Don't try to, take that with a grain of salt. Whenever you have companies that don't follow best practices and don't seem to, I'm just going to call it bad companies. Whenever you have bad companies, what happens is that one of the things they'll try to do is they don't want you to go out on the internet and tell people how bad the product is or how bad the game is or how upset you are with it. They would like you to come tell us in our forum, someplace where the only people looking on the forums is people who already play the game. We don't want you poisoning the well of people trying to get in. Now, when you have good companies, they want your feedback. And so they also want your feedback, ideally on the forums, because that would be the easiest place for them to find it. But they'll also go look, and we've seen this with Ashes of Creation, they'll go look anywhere you want to put feedback, if that's on their YouTube channel, if that is on, on a live stream or something else, then, you can give it to them there and they'll go find that info and they're very happy for it. Okay, it looks like the page loaded and then told me that it's down for maintenance. So we'll just keep seeing if we can get in. Yeah, I think it's just a little overwhelmed right now, guys. We're just gonna keep trying though. Yeah. And so, good companies are say, hey, please just ideally tell us on the forums, but the bad companies also want to like isolate that negative feedback so that they can sell more. And so it constantly put these things at odds. And then when a company says, they don't want you to look at a game and say, oh, look how great this game is, and look, they did the things that couldn't be done and everything else. And so you kind of get that defensive sort of behavior. Yeah, and if it's not good, and if you want to call it out, maybe you kind of seem like you're being people will label you as like, oh, you're just negative, you just don't like this game or something, even if it's a game you love and just want to play. Well, this is unfortunate. The website is just saying that it is down, and we're not really getting much more info. So what we might have to do while we kind of wait for this is check out some of what the creative director has said about the game. Well, maybe let's pull some of this music down a bit. How about that? It's interesting. I don't know. All of a sudden now we're immediately getting to this. No read lead for you. And then it immediately, it's just showing the website is down for maintenance. Thank you for your patience. I'm not sure spamming the refresh button is going to be very helpful for them while they're trying to figure out whatever's going on here. So we'll just try to be as patient as we can. has anybody else gotten back on? Has anybody else in chat managed to actually get into game? Well, let's pull up one of the, you know, I kind of got a couple of videos in queue here for just such a situation, so maybe we can kind of take a look and give them a little bit of time here to figure stuff out. One is this IGN interview. This is with Jonathan, so this is I believe he's creative director is his title. Let's take a look.
Path of Exile 2.
Let me actually just like mute this, I think. It's still just very loud for me. There we go. Just for right now. Just once more for old time's sake, let's see if it'll let us link our account. Nope, still down. All right. I don't know who this person is working for IGN, but let's take a look. Also, a note: we are watching an IGN. Obviously, there are some issues with IGN. For those who don't know, a lot of the traditional games media, IGN being a pretty major culprit, people are not particularly happy with them. They'll rate games just wildly inaccurately. You know, give games that are barely playable like a 7, and then give a game that's like pretty good but might not be a perfect game for you also a 7, and it's like, what is going on? So but let's see what they had to say. They interviewed with Jonathan, and you know, well, we could talk more about that incestuous kind of weird relationship between the traditional like games media, game companies, and YouTubers and everything. If you guys have questions, I'd love to, you know, drop them in chat. I'd love to talk about it here, and I'll keep hitting refresh and see if we can get logged in on the other screen here.
Everybody hyped, myself included, for the December 6th release of the beta. Now, I've been very fortunate in that I've gotten a few opportunities to play it over the last year. I've played the Witch, I've played the Ranger, I have played the Mercenary, I've played the Monk. I can't wait to dive in and play the beta.
What do you focus on?
There we go.
I had over there that's keeping people into Path for over 10 years and excited about Path 2. What do you focus on to keep that going?
I really think that it's being unafraid of innovation. Like, I think a lot of game companies, and especially as they get larger, they start to get very sort of dried in the wool, and it even happens within the studio. Like, quite frequently, I propose a change and I get a lot of pushback from people because, oh, this is the way we've always done it, you know, that kind of thing. And just even from that, like, I don't think it's even necessary, like, you know, because people talk all the time about how, oh, you know, budgets get large and people get risk averse. I don't even think that's necessarily even the largest pressure. I think that what it is that even internal to the studio, you know, a lot of people get used to how things are. They want things to stay the same. Like, many people who work for a game company are fans of the game. And so you get that same pressure of like, oh, you know, we can't change our flasks work. We can't change this. We can't change that. You know what I mean? And so we just have to really try to push through that. And so a lot of the time in the studio, what I'm doing is I'm saying to people, you know what? Like, even if you don't like this, we're going to try it. And if it's bad, then it's bad. And we'll just do something else. But if, you know, it's worth trying to do different things. And I think that served us well. And every time we've taken risks, it's paid off, right? And every time that we've been risk averse, I think it hasn't gone as well for us.
That's really interesting that he would say that even like people hate change in general. You've been doing things one way and you got to change them, do things another way. Like, people freak out, sure. But that's really interesting that even game developers and people in the company are having that same mindset.
You sort of stand
too high. But I think the really most important thing is just being honest with people, not appearing, like, for lack of a better word, like a corporate drone, right? Like, you want to actually just be honest and tell people exactly, why did we come to this decision, what actually happened there. And I think that, like, every time we've ever been honest with the players, I think that's been something that's been really good. So, that's where it comes from, really. Like, we just told people exactly why it was. We didn't kind of mince words.
That's all you got to do. That's all you got to do, game companies. All you got to do is tell people why, be upfront and honest with them, and you're good. If this happens so often with large corporations, there are basically two kinds of marketing. And I know that's very broad strokes, but hear me out. There are basically two kinds of marketings that companies do. If you are a really good company and you're trying to make a good product, you're dealing in good faith with your customers, and you're competing on your product being better in some way, cheaper, just better. That could be it works better, that could be it's cheaper but works just as well. Whatever it is, if you're trying to compete in a good solid business way, and then all you have to do for marketing, all you have to do is tell people and show them your product. And people hate to be sold, but they love to buy. And if you can just say, hey, here's the product we're creating, here's what it does, people love to buy that. If it's a good product, they want to buy it. Now, if you have a company that doesn't make the best product, that doesn't necessarily have an edge and can't compete on their product being solid, then what they need to do, or if they have a lot of problems that really upset their customers, and so they have kind of this mixed bag where it's like, well, I really need this product, but there's no other option for me. The other options are worse, but I still have a lot of problems. It's hard to get the product from you. In game terms, this would be like, you have issues where there's downtime on a game if it's a service, a live service sort of game like MMOs and what have you. If there are issues and things involved with that, where you kind of have this customer who it's a mixed bag for them, right? And so in that situation, or you have certain customers who are very happy with the product and certain customers that are very unhappy with the product. In that situation, what you need to do as a marketing person, or what the optimal thing to do is you want to tamp down on all of that negative publicity you can, and then, as much positive publicity as you can, obviously. And a lot of that involves gaslighting. And in PC terms, that's gaslighting your player base. And you can see this pretty clearly with Elder Scrolls Online. This is clearly something, there's a lot of people, if you just want to take just PvP, for example, if you mention PvP in one of their live streams, they'll delete your comment. They're very, very heavy-handed about deleting comments. Anything that they don't like, they will delete. And I don't mean things that are outrageous or rude. I mean just any comment, they will delete it. And they don't like to address things. They don't want to address bugs and issues with the game, all that kind of stuff. And they would rather. It's clear that they can't they can't compete and they can't give you good answers. They're not going to fix those things. They're not going to. They're just not going to fix the problems. And so they don't want to acknowledge the problem and then say they're not going to fix it. That's bad PR. So what you want to do is just not acknowledge it and then try to push other things instead. And again, this is just me talking objectively from a marketing perspective. That's what happens. And so you kind of have that dichotomy of Diablo, again, you have, oh, well, let us tell you why we made the bad decisions that we made, and why you should actually like it and why you should actually think it's good. And Jonathan here has been in the forums before telling someone, no, we're not going to do it like that, or we can't do it like that, and here's why. And he can explain why that's not a good option. That is, again, that, players don't always understand everything that is going on, and again, there's this weird dichotomy where you have really good companies who want player feedback of a particular type. And so they say, hey, give us feedback. Ideally, what they want is for you to tell them the problem. Just tell them pure, plain, here's the problem. I don't like X. I don't like Y. It's too hard to grind for this particular item. Or this boss does too much damage and it can't be mitigated, right? Whatever the problem is. And then what they don't typically want, most game developers, is for you to suggest solutions. And a lot of times players will skip from telling them the problem to explaining why there is, here's a solution. And sometimes they won't mention what the problem is. And so then they're just like throwing ideas at the developers. And as a developer, a lot of times, the world's busy. We're all doing a lot of things. You don't understand where a particular player is coming from. And they're telling you, you need to nerf damage on this guy, or you need to change this fight, or make it shorter, or whatever it happens to be. And they don't know what to do with that information. Now, so that's a case of a good company, right? They just want you to tell them the problem. Sure, you can offer suggestions, but tell them what the core problem is. And then oftentimes they might be able to come up with an even better solution. And I think that's true. And I think that's completely valid. What happens with, I guess, bad game companies is that the player base will end up knowing the game better than the developers. And so the developers have shown over the course of some period of time that they are incapable of coming up with good and solid solutions and even understanding the problems. And people have told them what the problems are potentially for years and years, and nothing has happened. And so then you have players that will try to give specific advice about like, hey, here's what you need to do because we've told you what the problem is, and you've come up with horrible solutions that make knock-on problems because you don't really understand your game. And so now we have to tell you, exactly what we think you should do in the hopes that maybe you'll listen to us. And again, what happens is then bad game companies cause problems for good game companies in that they're now, skipping that phase of like, don't let me, I'm not going to tell you what's wrong. I'm just going to offer some suggestion. And whenever you have good game developers who know about their product, know about their game and everything, that's not the ideal situation. So it's really kind of interesting to me, this dichotomy of good game companies and bad game companies, and how they can, the bad game companies cause problems for everybody, and then they gaslight players and so on and so on. So
or kind of, like trying to be vague, like, here is the exact thing that caused us to delay the game. We'll tell the players that, and they'll hopefully be understanding of that.
Yeah, totally get it. And I think it's received really well. I watched a different announcement from a different company, and it was all over the place. And then I watched yours, very succinct. You take responsibility, you apologize, and then you put it out there. And I as a player, really appreciated that because I am looking forward to the November date. What's the biggest issue facing the overall industry right now, in your opinion?
Oh, that's a tricky one. I mean, it's interesting because I think AAA gaming is in a weird place right now. We're kind of in this weird, maybe this is not the right, sort of AA territory where it's like this kind of position where like we're one of the giant mega studios, so that we kind of haven't inflated to the point where it becomes difficult to even make anything. But we're also definitely not in the classification of what you would call an indie game either. So I think that's kind of interesting because there's just not a lot of huge things in that area. And really, I mean, that stuff we talked about the ossification of game development, like in AAA, it's just really, really bad at this point, right? Like, there's definitely very little risk taking. There's kind of not a lot of that going on. But at the same time, there aren't a lot of those kind of indies coming up into...
The risk-taking thing is kind of interesting. There's this old saying in finance that used to be 20 years ago that, no one ever gets fired for losing money on Exxon, right? It's an oil company. The whole world uses oil. If you lose money on Exxon, you're not going to lose your job. If you lose money purchasing a stock that is some more obscure company, and it doesn't work out, you can get fired for that. And I think that it can end up being kind of that same thing. If you follow the trends and you follow the same cookie cutter mold and you don't change anything and your game's not successful, chances of losing your job are kind of lower. They're a lot lower. Whereas if you try to really change and innovate and do something totally different and it bombs and it doesn't work, that's a totally different situation. And you can lose your job for that, and are probably likely to, because they're going to attribute the failure to that, these risk-taking, which is a problem if you don't understand and know your product very well. And I think that's one of the things that we've really seen from indie developers and, whatever you want to call it, these studios that have over time have built up a following and have had several successful games, is that it's clearly shown that all you really just need to understand and know games and know the product you're making. And this applies to everything. There's an old saying, and it's been reused 1,000 times and changed in different ways. I've mentioned it before. One of them I've heard, because I'm from vaguely rural areas, like, the field is fertilized with the footsteps of the farmer, or something like that, right? Like that's like a inspirational poster you can put up on your wall. But the core idea is that you should understand and know your product and your business very well. And we can clearly see in a lot of these AAA game studios that they don't know or understand their player base. They don't understand their product. And so they can't make good games. And, things that are risky, they're literally are just shooting in the dark to see if it'll work. Whereas if you're a hardcore gamer and you play something and you try something that you've developed even internally, not a finished product, and you go, oh, this is really fun. Oh, there's something cool here. Now, not that that's going to work at 100% of the time, but you can iterate and you can figure out what that is. And these game companies that are kind of detached from that reality, they can't they don't know. They're literally just like shooting in the dark and hoping that something works, and so they're like, oh, make this or make that. And then you also have the situation where you have someone who is a game developer who does know games very well, and they're trying to do one thing, and somebody on the corporate or finance side says, no, you should make this thing. And then it's like, well, does it even matter what the developers think? Because ultimately the company is only going to do what's in their financial best interest, and if they think something will make them more money, even if we as players and probably the developer who knows their game and knows games and players very well knows that it's not going to work, they're still going to try because they're just chasing the dollar. They're not trying. They don't understand that, hey, the way we make money is just by making a really good product. It's crazy how simple that is, and it's crazy how often that it's forgotten in business.
Of entering the big leagues either, and so it's just something that's kind of been a trend for quite a while. You've kind of got the small games and you've got the big games. There's very little in the middle. So I think Path of Exile really is kind of in that sort of space. That one of the few games that kind of is in that type of area.
Like right in the middle.
Yeah, exactly, right. So we get to have like kind of nice graphics and a nice budget and all that sort of stuff, but we also get to still be innovative and like do interesting things that other companies aren't doing. I really don't know how to sort of reclaim that middle again and sort of have the game industry have that kind of stuff again. I think that really is challenging for the industry. Like, it used to be that there were a lot of what you might call AA games, and I kind of don't know where it all went. Like, why do we now in this position where you've got the like ultra AAA stuff, which is kind of very stolid and kind of not really going anywhere, and then on the other end of the side of things, you've got like the indies where it can be hard to get the broader audiences, and I just don't know how you get that middle back.
Do you feel like there's been an
That's really true. I've seen going to some of these
prioritization
going to
on.
Oh gosh, there we go. Going to the various conventions and what have you, that you'll have these small indie companies that make a really cool product, and if nobody knows about your product, like it kind of doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how great of a product it is if you can't get it out. I also see this with tabletop games as well, where you'll have people that make truly a really cool product, and it's just like, no one knows about it, no one has seen it, and it can be hard. And with digital games, it's a little bit different, because even if they make a really cool product, it's probably still going to be limited in scope because there's only 3 or 4 people working on the game. But it's still a really good game, so it's just that visibility thing. It's why I've tried to start covering, off and on some of these smaller indie games. That this isn't going to be a game that you're going to want to, spend 1,000 hours in over the next year or whatever. But it is a game worth picking up or what have you.
Graphics.
Well, that's an interesting one. I think graphics are important. They actually set there is definitely evidence that people appreciate a game more when graphics are a thing, but at the same time, you can do that stuff more efficiently if you're clever. And I understand it sort of may look like, the part of the reason why AAA budgets have inflated so much is because, of what they're doing with graphics. But at the same time, I do think that a lot of what they're doing, Like, you can do good-looking graphics by taking advantage of modern hardware without tying yourself into a process that leads to like a very expensive development process that I think some studios have. Like, we're able to produce a game with 100 bosses and like 800 monsters without having to, fall into the trap of having to have a team that's like absolutely thousands and thousands in size. Like, it can be done. It's just a question of, correct prioritization and the way that you do it. So I think it can be done. And as I said, players do value graphics. Like, it's important. Like, when people are looking at impressive boss fights, part of what they're looking at is the good animation and all the sort of work that we put into that. It's part of the spectacle and the charm. So, like, a lot of people do say graphics aren't important. I actually don't agree. I think they are important, but then at the same time, you have to be very careful not to waste time doing things, like sanding under the drawers is what they would, Pixar, I think, used to say, when you don't need to be doing that, when you can be concentrating on the stuff that's actually, put the budget on the screen, as it were, as opposed to wasting a lot of time with things that people just don't really notice.
Do you think Path of Exile 2 is going to be able to dethrone Banana Game on Steam?
It used to be that, and many of the older gamers here, I'm sure you guys will remember, it used to be that the thing that you got lied to the most about a game was on the cover. When you actually had a box of a game, you'd look on the cover, and if you like flipped it onto the back and you didn't see actual screenshots of gameplay, and it was just like cutscenes or really pretty graphics or what have you, maybe it wasn't from the game at all, you probably knew that there wasn't anything to the game. They're just trying to sell you on the graphics, get you to buy it. There's probably not much there. And that's how you could really tell. You'd pick up a game, I would always look for screenshots. And now it's basically the same thing, but instead of a box, it's the cinematics. Are they showing you like cool cinematics and cutscenes and what have you? If that's all you're seeing, it's probably not a good game. If they're showing you actual gameplay, even a little bit of UI, then that's indicative of it being a good game and in a state that you might want to be excited about it too. Let's just pop over and we'll just I keep checking, guys, but we'll just keep checking. I don't know, we're kind of hanging out here, so we'll keep at it. And just see if it'll work for us at all. No, it's still down for maintenance. And I'm also checking over here on my other screen and just checking to see if they've announced anything on Discord or what have you. So we'll keep listening. Oh, there we go.
Charts.
That's a tricky question. I think that when we go into full release, I think that there's a very good chance that we could end up topping the charts. But, for early access, I'm not so sure. I guess we're going to see. I really have no idea what kind of concurrency we're going to get for early access. Like, on the one hand, it is a big I think it's going to be a big, tentpole release. On the other hand, it is early access, right?
Okay, they're aware the website is down, and we recommend following their latest replies on Twitter. Okay, so we'll pull that up. Once the site is up, you can confirm your access, and then they give you a location. Okay. Well, I'll keep an eye out there then.
Like, a lot of people might be afraid to jump in for that reason. But I guess the message to those people would be that, we are a game that has the content of what a full AAA game would have these days. And we're also a much lower price point than what those games would be. So even though, it's early access, I think that the value proposition is incredibly there. And I think we should be able to see some pretty big numbers on launch of early access as well. But certainly when we get to full release, I'm sure we're going to be topping the charts. I see no reason why we wouldn't be.
Confident, huh?
Absolutely.
Yeah, cool.
Well, we're certainly going to buy enough servers for that.
Right. When you're making a game, what's the most important consideration a developer needs to have when crafting the experience? What needs to be top of the priority list?
It's honestly a very difficult question because of the fact that a good game is the culmination of getting every little tiny detail right. And it really is that defeat in detail, I think, that makes games feel bad. And the amount of effort, it honestly takes a lot of experience to get to the point where people even know what good looks like. I think that, once again,
I feel like these are very generic questions. Let me just ask you very broad questions, and then you just tell me whatever you want to say.
A lot of AAA games these days are getting defeated in detail, right? Like it's all of the little things that add together to an experience that, that isn't good, rather than it being just like one big issue. And I guess a lot of people, when they're analyzing games and why they're not doing well, they want to focus on, oh, it's because of this thing, and this big issue, it's because of that big issue. But I really think that gameplay comes down to getting 1,000 small details right. And if you do that, then the experience will be good. And it's honestly, like, I think even we underestimated what it would take.
Yeah, this is crucially important. That comes to the knowing your product sort of thing, where if you are intimately familiar with it and everything involved with it, then you can make good decisions. And you can make decisions that might seem risky and have confidence that it's going to work because you know and understand the thing. And that's why it's like so important. And we're like, play your game.
Exile 2, because like just getting all those details right and like getting all those things, like it was very easy to be overconfident, especially at first when we were marketing the game. Because making a fresh game means getting all those details right again. And, getting all the, like, we were really overconfident about itemization. Like, it took a lot of iteration to get to the point where that was working. Like, we thought, oh, yeah, we'll just take PoE1, make a few changes, and then we're good. No, like, it required, like, a huge amount of extra work, like, all of those things. And, like, you get one thing wrong, and immediately someone will have a bad experience, and they'll say that your game is bad. So it really is all those details that are required to get it done. So, yeah, I honestly couldn't point to one thing. It's just, like, 1,000 things, but correct, and knowing what those are.
Yeah, I remember the old philosophy. I think it was Bungie who said it, like the 3 seconds of fun or something like that.
Sure.
Is that still one of the main things that you
Well, I mean, sure, it's absolutely relevant, right? Like, you need to make sure that at every moment you are enjoying the experience that you're having. And, and as I said,
at every moment, you need to make sure at every moment that the player is enjoying this experience they're having. It seems so basic, but there are so many games that have intentional or unintentional pain points where it stops being fun. And if a game stops being fun and starts being work, starts being a chore and what have you, you'll start to lose people because of that. And I think what many game developers or game companies don't seem to understand is that, it's hard to track that. It's hard to track that, hey, I have to go do this game chore now. Especially, if people are referring to things in your game as chores, like, that should be a huge red flag, and probably there was a lot of things, but even before that, when you first have an issue where you go, oh, there's a pain point here, there's an issue, it's hard to link that to players quitting your game, but it's 100% true, and it's 100% the reality that that's what will happen. And it's really interesting that it's so hard for a lot of people to understand that. Because, and again, this is the problem with larger corporations, is because they're looking for data and they're looking for analytics and they're looking for, like, what one thing can we trace? Okay, well, this is this type of game or has this one feature and it's very popular, so why don't we have that one feature? Or that's why we're failing or whatever. And they start grasping at straws when you really just need to understand that, again, you need to know the product well enough that you can understand what's going on. And when someone is trying to, they're leveling up and they're progressing, and there's this pain point where they get hung up, where there's a giant skill gap and it's not really clear where they should go. And even if you have a place in your game where, like, oh, they should go do this thing so they can level up and then they can come back. Well, even if you have that thing, which a lot of games, might be missing a step, you have to direct the players and guide them there. And if you don't do that, you're going to lose people.
Any one thing can destroy that. So you need to be very careful.
Okay, cool.
I mean, in some ways you could say that game development is more about not getting things wrong than it is about getting things right. Like, if you can polish absolutely every little problem that a player might have out of an experience, you can give them a good time, even though, like obviously you need innovation as well, but, like, it really is important just to not get any of that stuff wrong.
Yeah, and I'm sure Jonathan would also agree with this, in that you can have something that is so fun, that is so enjoyable, that people will forgive a lot of your faults. Elder Scrolls Online, Bethesda, with their single-player games, has long had this thing where it was so fun that you overlooked all the bugs and all the issues, and this goes all the way back to the beginning, okay? The thing is that the more you play a game, what happens is the first time you have an issue, depending on how big it is, it's like, it may be funny. It's not a big deal. And then the more you play a game, it becomes more and more a problem. And so when there is continually the same problems and it keeps happening over and over again, it becomes more of a problem. So the longer duration people are expecting to play your game, the more of those bugs and everything kind of add up and become game breaking and become a problem for you. And you can get away with it for so long, but eventually you have to keep that fun on all those other things really incredibly high, or people are just going to start leaving your game. Hey Mel, how's it going? You saw I was on. Hopefully you got. Yeah, we're right now. Their website is down, and I guess we need to link our account with the website. But unfortunately, it's down for maintenance, so we're not able to do so. But yeah, just kind of waiting. And while we wait, I was just watching a little bit of an interview with Jonathan, the creative director here, and just kind of chatting and hanging out. So yeah, hopefully we'll get on soon, but got another ways here to listen and hang out and before we give up. So
what makes you so confident that Path of Exile 2 has all those right things?
I guess we've done a lot of testing recently, and it was something that took us a while.
yeah, your friend said he was in queue. He was 28,000, got down to 10K in the queue, and then everyone crashed and servers are down. Oh no. Okay, cool. Well, at least it's not just me, I suppose. I knew this is, I think we all knew this was going to happen. It happens with every game when there's just like so many people that want to get in and play at the same time, but still kind of a bummer sometimes.
To get to and do all that stuff, but effectively, we've beta tested a lot. We've done a lot of these events like that. We've got a lot of feedback. It's helped a lot to get a lot more confidence. And I guess one of the things that also was,
this is also, we're kind of talking earlier about players and kind of misunderstandings and what have you. I'm not sure if it's fully down, Lyriel. It might just be that like a huge swath of people is down. Or maybe everything's down, who knows? But, players will look at this sort of thing and they'll be like, this game sucks because, there was I can't log in on day one. It's a garbage game. I know that seems kind of crazy to those of us who play a lot of games because we know that like this is normal. It's a problem. We need to fix it, but we don't have the technology right now, right? It's not because these guys didn't, plan for this as best they could. And every game company does this. Not to say that some of them don't do a worse job than others, but people will get extremely mad at a company for something that is, to a large extent, like, they're a victim of their own success. It's not really their fault. I don't really blame them for that. But it's kind of interesting that, that's why you need the clear communication that, hey, they said we're expecting maybe 1 million people. And then they're like, oh no, we're getting even more people than we expected. And they have to plan for this stuff and they have to spend money and prepare for it. If you're thinking of, 1 million plus people trying to log into your game. And so, they just got to do the best they can. And it's really cool that they came out and said, hey guys, we expect like it's going to be worse. It's going to be better than they thought. And they're just going to have to do what they can to deal with it. And to me, that's okay. And I think when, you're always going to lose people at the edges, but I think most people are just like, yeah, that seems reasonable. We're not mad.
But concerning when we first were doing all that testing is that we were finding that.
And I will say just one more thing, I guess, not saying anything to your player base, to your customers, also can, when people don't have a clue of why things are happening, they'll try to figure out a reason. And probably the reason, based on their experience in the gaming industry, is that it's about money or the company doesn't care or something else. So if you don't tell people why it is and what's going on, they're probably just going to assume the worst.
Path of Exile 1 players were not liking the game as much as new players were. So by having, by iterating more, by making it so those numbers became similar, it makes me actually a lot more confident because I know that someone who knows Path of Exile, who knows how all the mechanics should work, is liking the game. And I also know that a new player who takes someone face value is who also doesn't have any experience with, who doesn't appreciate the game on the level of just like knowing about all the stats and everything, can also enjoy the game as well. And that makes me feel we've got both the kind of immediate, the few seconds of playing is just enjoyable, sort of going well, and we've also got the kind of longer term, I'm caring about stats and how to build my character stuff right as well. And if we can get both of those things right, then I think we'll have a good game in our hands.
Yeah, I mean, I already told you during Summer Games Fest that I was really enjoying it. So
Right.
best of luck as we go towards December. I'm
Absolutely.
very excited.
Yeah, thank you very much.
You know, Path 2 is coming out. What are some of the pitfalls that you want to avoid with Path of Exile 2? And at the same time, what were some of your must-haves when developing a sequel to an already hit game?
Yeah, so I mean, the tricky part is
Let's take a look at some of these. I have it. Sorry, it's on the other computer here, so I can't really display it. But they said a while ago we're doing some last-minute database upgrades, try to help handle the overwhelming amount of exiles getting ready to log in to PoE2. We're trying to get this done ASAP, but it may cause a short delay in the service going live. And then that was 4 hours ago, 3 hours ago. We're still working on deploying the database improvements, and we'll keep you updated as soon as we know more. The moment we can provide a precise timeline, we will. Thank you very much for your patience. There's also a lot of people that are very understanding of all these comments, and then there's a few people that are like, being kind of jerks, honestly. We're deploying the new database configuration or working on getting everything back up and running. Our current time estimates should have access opening within the next half hour. Thanks again for your support. Another update, we found a last-minute crash that would have affected a majority of users that we have now fixed and is being deployed. Once that's out, we'll be doing our final checks, then opening access. If there are any further updates, we'll let you know immediately. And then relatively imminent was a note from Jonathan. We're running into a configuration problem and need to restart the realm. Please bear with us as we address the problem. It's from a couple hours ago. The problem we ran into is due to adding more database shards in the last minute to try to support the massive number of players. Unfortunately, there was an issue which caused multiple characters to have the same character ID. Thankfully the problem was found and is now being solved. Oh gosh, I think I lost my place. No. What else do we... Man, it's a long post. We're running into the same symptom again with different problems. We're working to fix it again. This is in the last hour. But regrettably, every time this happens, we have to restart and wipe the databases to prevent them from getting into bad or corrupted states. We'll have to fix that as soon as we can. Be aware of the issue with players in parties, sometimes being placed into parties with other random players. Until we fix this, consider it a feature to enhance your social experiences. Oh, that's amazing. Oh, it's putting you in groups with random people, and that's how, see, this is how you deal with stuff. You make a joke. It's funny. It's obviously consider it a feature. That's good. Companies, when they have problems too, where it's like, oh no, you're doing 3 times the damage you should be doing, and they make a joke out of it, and they're like, enjoy it while it lasts. I just think that's such a better way than being like, anybody seen exploiting this will be banned. It just seems like, you made a mistake, you admitted to it, and you're like, yeah, we messed up on that one. Sorry about it. It just seems like a better way of dealing with it than like, if you exploit this, now if it's like a duplicating an item thing or something else, like I get that. You don't want people exploiting that. But if it's just like, hey, we messed up and now you're doing extra damage, like, you just gotta be like, cool, have fun. That just seems like a better way of dealing with it to me. For those still in queue, this is just from 45 minutes ago. From those still in queue, what we're doing right now is letting players in batches so that we can make sure to monitor the back end and not overload it. Thanks once again for your patience. Hopefully it won't be too much longer. We're aware of players being unable to claim their Steam keys due to Path of Exile website being down. Our website team currently has this as their top priority. This is the issue I think we're having, and have a plan of action to restore the service to allow you to play the game. A huge thanks for the grace being shown by those affected. Cool. And it's interesting. I was able to get it earlier, but it said I didn't have a key, even though I already had one. I think that's kind of the situation that I am in, since I have like hooked, like everything's in theory hooked up and what have you. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe that's just the same thing that they are already addressing. And I think that's it. The last one is from like 30 minutes ago. The website's down. They're working on it. So, yep, still down. All right.
Is that when you make a game, a sequel to a very popular game that has a very hardcore community, every single thing you change about it is like a potential point of friction for a community that's going to be like, can be, incredibly, I mean, look, they've got a lot of opinions, right? And so the pitfall that I worry about is, like on day one, you get a bunch of like, even though, like new players may play it and enjoy it, you might have a situation where like PoE1 players are kind of like, oh, I don't like this, it doesn't fit to whatever I want. And so that is a really big problem. And we were actually very concerned about this because when we first did our user testing closed betas, we actually found that Path of Exile 1 players rated the game worse than what Path of Exile 2 players, what new players did.
That's a huge problem, and I do not envy them having to figure out how to make both traditional, Path of Exile 1 players happy and also wanting to open up the games to a larger audience. And with games like Path of Exile that have a hardcore audience that are really into the game and are really super sweaty, you don't want to, obviously you don't want to alienate that group, but oftentimes they don't like things that make the game more accessible to more people. And so it's a difficult, thing to thread where you're trying to get more people, new players in and make the game easier and what have you. This is a problem with all games, digital and tabletop even. And it's a difficult thing. It can be done, but again, it requires an intimate knowledge of your game, an intimate knowledge of your player base, what they like about the game, what you like about the game, and what have you. So we'll see if they've done it. I am certainly coming from the new player experience, so we'll see, but hopefully, I know I enjoy it already, but I hopefully existing, and previous PoE players will also enjoy it.
And that was a huge concern, right? Because it's like, well, we can't really launch like this. This would be a big issue.
Yeah.
And so it took us a while to kind of get the game to a point where both PoE1 and new players both liked it. But yeah, we started from a point where new players liked it more than old players. And in fact, it was very interesting because Path of Exile 1 players actually...
It can also be hard, too, because you have to understand that there could be things that the player, your current player base, the people that are already playing your game or played the previous edition or what have you, where they're coming into the second game with some preconceived notions and what have you, and they don't understand that it's totally different because it probably looks and feels a lot the same. And so sometimes they can have these feelings that aren't necessarily valid, like, oh, I don't like, oh, this is so easy to get this thing now, and that used to be a big deal that you worked really hard to get that, and now you're just giving away to everybody. And it's like, yeah, we are, but like there's other things, new, different things that are also hard to get. And so the prestige kind of stuff that you have to really work your way up to is I'm just making something up here, but that's a different tier, a new tier. And then when players understand that, they go, oh, okay. Oh, all right. And they're not mad anymore, but you have to realize when it's okay to have those moments and try to soften them as much as you can. But it could be valid that they're there.
Rated the difficulty of the game harder than what new players did. New players rated the game as, oh, it's actually not that difficult. And PoE1 players were like, man, this game is so impossible.
Oh, that's interesting. I assume that's because they are coming in with this preconceived ideas of how to play the game.
And it's just because they're trying to apply all the knowledge that they had from playing a game for 10 years to a game that has different mechanics and different stuff going on. So as I said, I think that's the biggest pitfall and the biggest potential source of strife that we might get at launch is just a bunch of PoE1 players having issues. But as I said, I think we've managed to solve those problems. There was just a lot of things around itemization and like the way the tree was, and just a lot of things like that we had to deal with. And so in terms of the stuff that I think that was just really important to get going from the start, this endgame stuff, I think that was something that we realized relatively late, that we really have to make sure that, if we don't have a good endgame going into early access, then Path of Exile 1 players are just going to say, hey, this is just a worse game. We need that stuff to be able to actually make a PoE1 player feel like, oh yeah, you know what, this is a true sequel to PoE1, because for a lot of players in PoE1, the campaign is not even a thing for them anymore. They complete it in hours because they've done it so many times. For them, it's like just a tiny blip in the progress of a character, right? Because they spend 99% of their time in endgame. So if we didn't have that, then I think it would have been a disaster. So thankfully, now that we've addressed that concern, we've got stuff. We believe we have enough of an end game to make those people happy. I think that pitfall will thankfully be avoided. But as I said, it was only a thing that we realized relatively recently.
What was the hardest thing to...
That's interesting that he said that. It's cool that they realized that, hey, we should probably have something in in-game for people to do and something for them. Otherwise, yeah, it's going to be a problem. It's kind of funny with WASD controls and then also with in-game kind of stuff. I mean, WASD controls I've wanted since like the 90s, and it's so weird that it just has never been put into any of these games and as an option. And it's not like we didn't have the technology, but interesting decisions get made with some of this stuff.
Get with couch co-op, because that's not something a lot of games do these days.
For sure. So, I mean, there's a few things. One of them is that, and this is probably the most obvious one to people, is that having to just build the UI again. We have to make 3 versions of the UI now. We've got the PC version, we've got the console version, then we've got the couch co-op version. But it ended up being really important because we found that it really just sucks to have to wait for the other player to do things. Like when we first did it, it was just, you could open a full screen menu and the other person just had to wait basically. And so then we were like, okay, well, this isn't really good enough. Let's add at least inventory. We'll make it so that part will work. And then as soon as we had that, we're like, oh, but people want to be able to allocate passives separately. People want to be able to do this and that. And pretty soon we were rebuilding every single UI screen. And we haven't even finished that yet. Like right now, if you've got 2 players, you can't both shop at the same time. But we're still getting complaints about that. So now we're like, okay, now we have to remake the shop interface as well in couch co-op. And we're pretty much ending up, as I said, rebuilding everything 3 times now. So that's certainly certainly something. But I think it is worth it because people are so excited for couch co-op. Like even just around the office, like once our developers knew we were making couch co-op, everyone was like, oh man, I really want to play this with my partner. Like it was just a really exciting thing. People have responded really well to it. Like ever since the announcement, people have just been really buzzing about it. So I think it's worth it.
Yeah, it's really cool. It's just a feature you don't see a lot these days.
For sure.
So the fact that it's being included, it kind of like just reminds you that you're putting a lot of care into Path 2. Path 2 is going to have PvP, right?
It will, but it's not really the focus, to be honest. So every time we've ever tried to make PvP like a big focus thing, people have kind of found like they enjoy PvE better. So like we'll have PvP still in, but it's more of a kind of fun thing you might want to do with your friends rather than some big serious competitive thing. Like we're not an esport. That is not our.
I wonder if that's going to change. I wonder if people are going to really get into it and dig it.
Intention. So
I feel like one of the problems when you have a large PvE game, MMO or ARPG or whatever it happens to be, is that when you go into PvP, I think it's a lot harder to monetize than it is for PvE. And I wonder if it's hard for them. I could be wrong, but I wonder if it's hard for them to make a direct link from like, these are players and this is also a revenue stream. And it also introduces a lot of problems with toxicity and what have you, and that could like kind of poison the community. And I mean, there's been developers who've literally said that that's the reason they didn't include certain things or didn't want to include PvP is there we go. Are we back? Thanks, Mel.
We're doing a lot more of this sort of combo type gameplay, and when we do that, we try to keyword things so that they would work across classes. So, for example, you've got something like a power charge, which is something that you can use to improve your abilities, and we try to have power charge mechanics on quite a lot of different classes. And what that means is that we've got to be very careful about what skills, because you can use skills from other classes. You've got to be very careful about how those things can happen, because like when you're balancing something, when you're looking at it, you may just be only thinking, okay,
all right, we'll catch you later, Mel. Thanks for dropping in.
What can this do with the skills that I've got in this class? But given that you can use things from any class, we also have to be worried about all this other stuff, and it can kind of the explosion of different possibilities kind of gets out of control. And I know already that there's just like ultra broken stuff that you could do. Like if you use that bell with a Sork using Spark, It is broken as hell. Like, you can just chew through any boss right now. So we need to do something about that. But that kind of thing is certainly tough to deal with. But we kind of like that stuff because that's what makes it interesting in the long term, right?
What's your philosophy in that? Like, I've heard it referred to as like nails on a board. You see one pop up a little too high. Do you like just let it linger for a while before you tap it down where it needs to be?
So generally speaking, we don't do nerfs within a league. Like, whatever the balance is when a season starts, we want to.
It's an important note here that it's 3 months for a league, and if something's kind of broken, they just let that roll.
Keep that so that people don't feel like they invest time into their character and then for the developers to come along and destroy what they were doing. So I always try to avoid that, but each season it is okay to be able to do some balance stuff. I don't want to just like whenever we're doing stuff like that, I try to find something that isn't what the players expect as for how we're going to change something. Like, I don't want to just like nerf the damage value, right? I mean, sure, you can do that, but it's cooler, I think, to kind of come up with something else to kind of subvert something that's going on and sort of make it more interesting. I guess the funny part about that is, and I think the reason why a lot of developers just kind of turn into nerf fests with their patches is because it's way easier to see the thing that's broken and nerf it than it is to see the thing that's underpowered and buff it. Because it's just like, you don't really, like inherently the things that are not as powerful get less
Bunch of Helldiver 2 players are like, yes, this.
attention because players aren't playing with them, so they're not on your mind. And so, yeah, the ability to sort of notice that stuff and buff it is actually quite hard to sort of get into the mindset of doing. But it is what you should be doing.
Yeah, and there's this sort of dance with players where you want them to feel that power fantasy
For sure.
of leveling.
For sure.
But then you also got to keep it fresh, like with each season of
sure.
the game. How do you approach that? Like, are you like, okay, this time we're going to really go all in on druids, and then next season it'll be witch?
It does kind of end up going like that. Like, with each Path of Exile season, we definitely pick a few things to address, but you've always got to make sure that there's a stuff around the whole game. And so ideally, with the way we do game design, whenever we add something new to the system, because everything has so much cross-pollination, it means that it generally will affect the builds of kind of all different classes, like, when we add a league and so on. So that does keep the gameplay fresh. I think more so than most games, we have this kind of like thing where, almost any system can interact with another system, and that is what leads to the complexity that like Path of Exile is kind of a bit notorious for. But it does mean that, it does keep the game fresh every time people keep coming back. So ideally we can kind of tame the complexity while still keeping that element, but it is pretty challenging.
What's something that you're really proud of with Necropolis and something that you feel like you could have been better? The feedback has been somewhat mixed for that.
I'm just watching some of these Twitter posts about this, the people that are mad, and I'm sorry, but it's kind of hilarious. People are like, oh, I paid $160 for this, but it works for streamers. It doesn't work for me. And then like other people that are, mad that they linked their account however many weeks ago, which is I did as well. And then it's not working because the site is down. Oh man, like, did they not know that this was going to happen? We all knew, right? We all knew this was going to happen. This was a possibility.
It isn't really my thing. Like, I'm not working on Path of Exile 1, so I'm kind of aware of it just from being in the studio. But probably the main issue.
We're going to give this a little bit longer. I mean, they're kind of just like these aren't incredibly interesting questions here going up right now. So, I mean, maybe we could like pop to the next one or something. I don't know if it's going to move along, but we'll see if we get some more interesting stuff here. I'm probably going to give it around the 45 minutes to an hour mark. I think we're almost to the 45-minute mark for them to kind of update us. And if not, then we might pause here, and that way, I can go do some other stuff and come back when we can actually play the game. And that might be the most efficient thing. We'll give it a few more minutes here.
It is something that I want people to be able to consider good in the game, which I think that PoE1 had pretty good sort of environmental stuff going.
Let's jump ahead here.
Wrapping up here, but I got the Brood War chest, and that was like my first experience of PC gaming. It was great.
Nice.
Okay, just real quick on this last interview. This was one of the earliest interviews I did, and my microphone was not working during it, so I did audio pickups, which may sound a little bit disjointed, but I'm basically repeating what I asked at the time. Here you go. What's the most important thing for an ARPG to get right?
I don't know that I can answer just one thing, because really I'd say there's 5 major things. So the number one to me is action combat, right? Like, you can't have like an MMO style combat. It needs to be action focused. Another one is random item generation. The random items are super important. You need to get that right. Very few games actually do. The next one is random levels. Ultra important because if you want a game to last for a long period of time, you have to have level randomization. Once again, something that a lot of modern games aren't really doing these days. Another one is secure online economy. So effectively, you have to have a secure item system. If you don't have the ability to trade items between players, then people just won't value them the same way as if they find them themselves. And then the last one, what is my fifth pillar? What have I forgotten here? Oh yeah, that's right. Character customization. You have to have the ability to have a large amount of character customization so that if you're playing the game over and over again, you're going to have a lot of different ways to play. It's going to be a different experience every time. So to me, those are the 5. That's how you make it.
The combat feels great. I absolutely love it. The action, I'm with you. I'm with them on the fact that MMO combat, especially tab targeting, old school MMO is just, I just can't do it anymore. ESO has pretty, I think that's one of the things that people like most about ESO is that it has such good action-oriented combat. And yeah, you can tab target and what have you, but it actually works incredibly well.
An action RPG right there. We've said this at GDC talks before, and yet still action RPGs come out and they don't have one of those. And I'm kind of like, we're giving you the secret sauce, guys. Like, that's how you do it. So yeah, to me, that's an action RPG right there.
Is it inspiring to see so many successful
It's not that hard to understand what you need to do. It's just hard to do it.
ARPGs on the market right now?
I think it is good because a rising tide lifts all boats, and especially with the kind of seasonal model that action RPGs do best with, there's room for people to play more than one action RPG at a time. But the big thing to me that I found is that when new games come out like that, they kind of set a new minimum standard, and we have to make sure we're meeting that standard. Like if they have features that players now expect, that means that we have to make sure we're adapting to what that new minimum is. So that makes it challenging, right? Like there are things we could have gotten away with before Last Epoch comes out, and then Last Epoch comes out, they have a few things going on that have once again raised a minimum standard. We now have to meet that standard as well.
That's awesome to hear that, this is one of the things that a lot of people don't seem to understand is that competition is great for everybody. It's great, or at least it's great for consumers rather. It's maybe hard for companies, but raising the bar and what the minimum is, that's awesome.
We have to care about that. So that kind of thing, it matters a lot. And as I said, we have to pay attention.
Can you give me an example of something someone else is doing that you really like?
Right. So a really good example of this is the trade stuff they have in Last Epoch, where that isn't to say that we want to copy what they're doing with trade, but the key thing is that there was clearly a community demand to make trade easier than what it is in PoE 1. And when there isn't another game that's meeting that demand, we can honestly get away with a worse experience. But when there is, it's like, well, we have to do something about this, right? We have to make sure that we have a trade system that's going.
And again, even if you have a game that you absolutely love, this is why you want other games to be popular and to be fun and engaging and great for players. You want everybody to succeed because it'll make the game that you play better. And I don't think that's clear, and I don't think a lot of people necessarily understand that.
Going to allow that to to meet the new minimum standard. Otherwise, people are just going to be complaining about it, and they're right to, right? Because once other games in the genre have lifted the standard, that's on us to improve.
When watching streams, do you ever see things you want to address or fix?
Absolutely. I mean, the only way that we're going to improve is doing that stuff, and it's honestly just what.
Well, guys, I think we might just call it here. I think that we're not going to be able to get logged in the short term, and hopefully I'll keep an eye out, and once things come back up and we can get logged in, we will do so, and we'll probably just call it here until then. We are going to be running some Dreadcell Reef with Nani. She's tanking for the first time later on tonight, so we'll be doing that about, I want to say 8:30 Mountain Time. I'll actually put that up as soon as I end this stream, so it'll pop up for you. And I think we'll just see you guys then. And if something happens in the short term, the game comes back up, I'll hop back on and play as long as I can. So we'll call it here, guys. Nani's hyped for the Nani prepared for Dreadcell Reef. I think you're gonna do great. I think we're gonna crush it. We're gonna get through there pretty quickly. So All right, guys. We'll see you in a little bit, a handful of hours, if not sooner. All right, guys. We'll talk to you soon.